and we have our widely discussed topic, Candida. And fortunately, there's a lot more talk about it now outside of our immediate community.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a lot of people that come to us and say, well, we hear that fats are Candida feeding. We hear that carrots and beets, that we shouldn't be having those. Why are we consuming them?
Mm-hmm. Carrots and beets are a water-containing plant food. Have they been hybridized? Yes. But they are still a water-containing plant food that does not make the blood sugar levels spike unless they're consumed in their concentrated form, meaning as a pure concentrated juice. So pure carrot juice, pure beet juice to a lesser extent, can create blood sugar spikes, but carrots themselves, beets by themselves, cooked or raw, will not. So we're talking about water-containing plant food. Now, the same people who argue that these substances are so terrible are promoting nuts and oils.
And meat.
Well, but if we're talking about the raw food community,
right.
Nuts and oils. And so, it's one of those things that's like, in fact, I would say carrots and beets are always top of my grocery list. Hopefully they'll be part of top of my personal garden list pretty soon. But those are the things I always have around. Also, raw sweet potatoes, which I love, raw yams. And I find them to be some of the most quick exit substances I could take in. So they're a friend to cleansers, without any doubt. People who have that concern, they're just missing out because they could be cleansing and enjoying these foods without a problem. Again, it comes back to the only time a food becomes obstructive to the cleansing path is if it's creating blockages or preventing blockages from being removed. So carrots and beets don't do that. In fact, they do the opposite. In their cooked and raw form. In their raw form, they're health generators. They have the life force in them. They're water containing. They don't leave waste matter behind if it's a clean system that's strong. And when they're cooked, they're the perfect neutral segue to get to help escort the waste out. So and they're filling and they're delicious. So I say accept the fact that they're hybridized and we've been digesting them for a very long time. They're if they're not GMO, they are they're good.
So why are we eliminating other sugars? Let's say fruit sugars, but we're still consuming the vegetable sugars.
Because the vegetable sugars are way less concentrated. They're not nearly as sugary. They're not nearly as sweet as fruit. I mean, in fact, if you were to this is how we look at it. The low sugar fruits are the safest fruits. As we increase the sugar content in the fruits, they become more yeast feeding. So pineapple, mango. What am I thinking of? Just really sweet fruits. I'm leaving some out. I'm sure a lot of yummy sweet fruits out. And then we have green apples, berries. And in fact, which are not so sweet, which can be used. In fact, often with Doris, I always forget to include things like green mangoes or green papayas, which she'll put into recipes, which can be used in recipes because the sweetness hasn't developed yet.
Yeah, there's no sugar.
Yeah, they can be treated as vegetables. Kind of like a jicama is like an apple that's not sweet. It's kind of how I describe it to people who've never had jicama. And so carrots and beets have a degree of sweetness to them, but you compare that to the sweetness of biting into an apple or not a Granny Smith apple, of course, but like a Fuji apple or any other fruit out there, and it's not anywhere near that. Plus, to remember that you don't need to remove every gram of sugar to starve off the yeast monster. You just have to dramatically decrease the amount of sugar you're taking in, the grams of sugar you're taking in, compared to what you were doing before that developed the yeast monster into what it became.
Right, and that's the big thing to remember, is that you don't have to be 100% perfect. There just has to be improvement.
Yeah. and the term often used is progress, not perfection. And if you're progress, not perfection is basically you walking across that bridge. You're not operating the way that you on the other end of the bridge who's already arrived is operating. But you're moving in that direction, and that's what matters. So that's what's going to get you there. Again, the other thing I love is look where you're going, because that's where you're headed, or look where you're headed because that's where you're going. Basically, they're interchangeable. But that's what this is all about. Yeah, and if having it's common sense really, and I think the more people can use their common sense in this lifestyle, the better. If we're talking about eating what people or what developed the Candida condition to begin with, and instead having salads with and carrots and beets, there is no question. Again, it goes back to the frequency that you brought up earlier. If we're taking in the substances that created the disease or the imbalance at whatever level it's manifesting, carried the frequency for that manifestation. If instead we're taking in substances and the spectrum of the day of those substances is of a higher order of frequencies, then those conditions are not going to be perpetuated. They can't be by the very nature of quantum physics. It's impossible.
That's really reassuring.
Hope so.
Thank you.